Thank you, Michelle. As she mentioned, my name is Amy Robertson, and I am a Senior Customer Success Manager here at Beekeeper. In the session now, we'll be going over the operational suite, and I'll be sharing some best practices that we see our customers that engage with it very well with their employees are using today. We can go ahead and get started. Here's an agenda of what I'll be going through today. We'll begin with an overview of the operational suite, giving a brief description of each of the features. After that, we'll dive into some real-life example use cases that we see our clients engaging with on a frequent basis. Then we'll move into some ROI calculations where you can see examples of ways that our customers have actually been able to calculate the impact that these features have had on their business. And lastly, we'll be wrapping up with some frequently asked questions about these features. If you have any questions that I don't address during this session today, please email us and one of our customer success managers will be able to respond to you with an answer. The email you can send it to is customersuccess.na@beekeeper.io. So kicking things off with our operational suite. This is an overview of the 4 different features that we have within the operational suite. The first is the document library. I'll be spending a good chunk of our time today going through that and how to use it in some example use cases. You also have the ability to import shift schedules. This can be done through an Excel upload, or you can integrate with one of our partner calendar functionalities. Later in this session, we'll be diving deeper into the forms as well, going through some examples and best practices there. And one of our newest features is tasks. Tasks can be assignments that you give to either yourself or to other members of your team. All of these features you can use in both our operational suite light version or the full version. The difference between the 2 versions I just mentioned is the light version is available to all of our customers. So if you have Beekeeper, you do have access to these tools. There will be some limitations to the amount of documents or forms you can use at once, but all the features will be available. And then with our full operational suite, you can use it with even higher volume. So no limitations there on the amount that you can have uploaded into the platform at one time. So now that you know a little overview of this operational suite, why does it matter? And what we've learned is that clients that are using the operational suite actually have seen a significant increase in the engagement of the platform. This slide here shows that for the period between beginning of December to early February, which is when we tracked it for a few of our clients, we saw a 10 to 12 increase in the weekly engagement. So having these operational features actually brought more employees to the platform on a weekly basis. This is why we think it's very important to implement some of these features, because once these employees are coming in, maybe they're coming just for that one form or that one document in the library to reference that. But now they're in the platform and they're going to be exposed to all the great other content that you're putting in there, whether it's particular information in the streams or chats with their team. Coming in for one feature will give them exposure to all of it. We'll go ahead now and do a deeper dive into the document library. So document library is one of our favorite features, or at least my own favorite feature. It's essentially a way that you can upload documents into Beekeeper that can then be shared with your team. As you can see in the screenshot here, they can be put into specific folders, so you can group together certain documents to make it easier to find and sort through everything. And for each folder, you can customize the settings on who will be able to have visibility. For example, you might have certain documents that are only going to be applicable to management level team and not for the frontline employees. So with the permissions on the back end, you can set it for just a specific group of employees can access that folder and the documents inside it. Additionally, one cool feature we have is integration with SharePoint. A lot of our clients also use SharePoint as a way to store their documents. Sometimes, though, there's limitations on the number of SharePoint licenses that you might have at once. So if you integrate SharePoint with our document library, It will be able to pull in the specific documents that you request. And now those documents can be available to any employee with a Beekeeper login. So they won't need to have a separate SharePoint license in order to see that same information. Again, even if you're pulling in this information from SharePoint, you can still customize those settings so only the right documents are hitting the right groups and you're not mixing information into places that it shouldn't be. Now we'll head into some of our example use cases. Here I pulled in a few different buckets that we often see used on a frequent basis by our clients. First up will be some department-specific information. So as you can think, when you start a new role, you might have a lot of questions, and this is going to be a great place for new hires or even folks that have been there on the job for a while to reference that information that they need for their day-to-day work. It could be a how-to guide, maybe an instruction book on a particular piece of machinery that they're using that has some troubleshooting for whenever something might break or go wrong. They can then reference it and make sure that they understand the right way to proceed with the particular issue. Additionally, it could be on specific processes for the job. For example, if they have a certain request, this document can tell them you'll first submit the request to this person on your team who will then fulfill it, and you should hear back within XYZ days. Having that information will make it a lot easier for the employees to know what to do when. A few other examples we see are price lists. So if there are specific things that the employee is selling, for example, maybe they are at a restaurant or some sort of market type situation where there's prices set by the corporate team. Now they can reference it at their specific site and make sure that they're reflecting that right with any frequent changes. Quarterly goals are also fantastic to share. It keeps everyone informed on what the point of what their job is and what they should be striving to, especially if it's a team effort, then they all can remind themselves of where they're really striving to hit during that time period. Lastly, I put some educational resources in career development. It is always fantastic to encourage your employees to grow within their roles, and having that information available at their fingertips is going to be a fantastic way to remind them that there's so much that they can achieve and that you are truly there to support them. Next up, we often see company information as a big category within the document library. So a few examples I put here are an employee handbook. This could be with just everything company-wide that's going to be standard across all departments, whether it's internal policies, dress codes, different information like that, that employees can reference whenever they have a question. Job postings are going to be fantastic to share here as well. Often with our larger clients, they might have a lot of postings available at once. So it's really nice for employees to always see what's open in case they're interested in making a move to a different department or even a different location. I also love adding in important contact information. So whenever there is an emergency or an employee needs to reach out to a specific person, they're going to be able to easily reference that and know who is the right contact for that particular situation. Event calendars are great to share as well, whether it's about quarterly meetings, fun team events, or when benefits information is due. Employees can easily go in there and reference what might be coming up that they should be aware of. And lastly, COVID frequently asked questions. With this past year, obviously, this has been a huge topic of importance amongst a majority of our clients. So it's great to have up-to-date information that employees can reference whenever they have questions, especially given that the situation is constantly evolving and what might have been accurate 2 weeks ago could be completely different today. So having that up-to-date information in a place that they can access is going to be fantastic to ensure that all of your employees are on the same page about the protocols you're following internally. Lastly, we'll get into some human resources that we often see as well. So benefits information is fantastic to share. You can specify, again, with certain folders for different groups, because maybe some of your employees, if they're hourly, don't qualify for full benefits, and other employees that are full-time do. So you can have that allocated with the permissions on the back end, so the accurate information is showing for each group. Mental health resources are going to be fantastic to share as well, to make sure that your employees know that they are cared about and where to go if they are struggling with something personally, maybe outside of work, but that could be impacting their well-being. Career development plans is always great. Again, I know I put that in 2 spots because sometimes there's department-specific career development as well as company-wide development. So having those different resources for the appropriate groups will be fantastic. And lastly, some frequently asked questions for human resources. When are the pay periods? How do you request vacation? Anything like that that they might need to know and potentially would reach out on a frequent basis to find that information. Now you can make sure it's somewhere they can access at any point on their mobile device. Now we'll share a few real life cases that we're seeing today with our clients. First up, I was going to share a story about one of our beverage distribution companies. They're located here in the United States. And the situation they were in was that their marketing team would develop these fantastic newsletters. It had a variety of information in it, including their benefits update, employee news, relevant articles about their company that were in the media. So it's a very all-encompassing newsletter with links to these different sources as well. The issue was, though, the marketing team was only able to email it to the employees with the company email address. And that was just a small subset of their entire employee base. So what they were able to do is download that newsletter as a PDF and then upload it into the Beekeeper document library. This way it can now be shared with all employees that have Beekeeper access. So even the folks that don't have a company-specific email address can now see this weekly newsletter and understand all that great content and be up to date on their company. As a way to promote this newsletter and make sure that employees always are able to reference the newest information, they actually added a link to that folder within the document library as a navigation extension. So it showed up on their home screen as a shortcut and also under the More tab as a navigation extension. So they could just click in to the weekly newsletter and then open the newest one to see the up-to-date company information. This has been a fantastic way to keep their employees informed and created a greater sense of the values within the company because it's something that they're reminded of all the time through the great news that has been shared. Next up is one of our food supply companies. They use a few different features of our operational suite, but the one in particular I was going to focus on was our document library. Prior to using the Beekeeper document library, there was one PC that all the employees would have to have their manager go to reference the specific file they need. So you can imagine if an employee was asking for a certain benefits information form, they'd have to ask their manager, who would then go to this PC, pull up the file, print it out, or email it to the employee. And that was a huge time waste on their day. So once they were able to then upload this to the Beekeeper document library, now employees could access it at any point on their mobile device. They no longer needed to go to their manager every single time and have it be during specific work hours when the manager was available. So this led to a 90% reduction in the time taken to access these documents, which was incredible. So that came out to be about $1,500 time saving per employee per year. So wonderful. We're so thrilled that they have had such a great time with the document library as well. The last story I'll be sharing today about the document library is one of our casino hotels. So again, this was a client that used a few different ones of our features, but in particular, they made documents available to their frontline workers. When they rolled out with Beekeeper, it was at the start of the COVID pandemic in 2020, and they were closed at the time due to COVID and only recently reopened to the public again in October. So by them having these documents available on the document library, instead of having to print it out and supply all these copies to their employees, they were actually able to save about $10,000 just in the color prints saved per year, and over $4,000 per year from the PTO form alone. So fantastic that they were able to find some great different information to share through Beekeeper to first off make it more efficient and a much greener solution as well. If any of you have questions on these examples and want to learn more about them, again, please email us at customersuccess.na@beekeeper.io. I'll now share a few of our frequently asked questions around the document library. First up is, what type of documents are supported? The great news is there are a whole bunch of different documents we can support. I added in all the different types right here. So you can see we can do PowerPoint, PDF, document, even GIFs are supported within the document library. So pretty much anything that you'd like to upload, you can put it directly in there. And when your employees open it on their phone, they don't need to obviously have Microsoft Word downloaded on their phone. They'll be able to see a version compatible with their mobile device. So it'll just be within that platform and they'll be able to open it without having to have access normally to an Excel document. Next up, are there any limits on the number of files or the size of files? Yes. So an individual file size has a maximum of 10 megabytes, and your entire document library has a maximum of 100 gigabytes. Additionally, if you're using our free version, which is Documents Lite, you're able to upload 5 documents at a time. These documents you can swap in and out as often as you want. So you might start with 5 related to human resources and a month later switch it out to 5 related to department specific. So up to you on how you use it, but you can swap them in and out whenever you need. And if you have our full document version, we don't have any specific limit on the number of individual files you upload, just that maximum for the total document library. Lastly, for the document library, how do I know if users are viewing the documents? Well, you can ask your customer success manager. We have the ability to pull a lot of different information and reports around the document library. Right now, this is not available in your dashboard within your tenant, but we can pull this on the back end for you. So if you have any specific questions, we are able to generate these reports. You can specify the time range and make sure that we're grabbing the right information for you and for the specific period as well. If you have any other questions about the document library that I did not touch upon here, again, email us at customersuccess.na@beekeeper.io. We'll now switch gears a bit and talk about forms. So forms are a fantastic way to ask your employees questions and get their feedback on different things. Currently, we do have Forms Lite available for everyone. And the Forms Lite version, it allows you to add 1 form at a time. So similar to the document library, you can swap this in and out as many times as you want. But at any point, you can have 1 form live. And if you have the full forms from our operational suite, then you can have as many forms as you like at once. Additionally, forms can be created by group admins, location admins, as well as global admins. So you all have that ability to create those forms on the back end within the dashboard. We'll now jump into some use cases we see for forms. So here, again, I've broken it up into 3 different categories. First up is daily work. We see a lot of our employees doing shift notes where they send a summary of their day to the management teams. That way everyone can be aware of any big wins or challenges or inventory requests. So it's great to have that quickly submitted on their phone and sent off to the right person at the end of their shift. Having an opening or closing checklist, you can put off all the different tasks that someone needs to do when opening up the store, and they can check off yes, 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 yes when they've done it all and submit it when done. So you can verify that that employee has completed everything needed for their day. Repairing or replacing equipment. This is something we see frequently. If something's broken or missing, you can submit a request and even include a picture to show what is broken about that equipment. So that way the leadership team knows exactly what's wrong and what specific part needs to be fixed, or if the entire machine itself needs to be replaced. COVID health checks has been a large one as well. We've seen this used significantly across a lot of our clients. So that way employees at the beginning of the day can check off if they've felt any symptoms in the last 48 hours or whatever specific time period your role requires, and verify if they are feeling healthy that day. And lastly, some inventory requests. Always great to submit it whenever needed. If there's something low or out of stock, you can submit the request and have it sent to the leadership teams. That way they know what needs to be reordered and how long they have until that item needs to arrive to the team. Next up, some human resources examples. Things we see are like PTO requests, requests to update personal information, submitting a candidate for a job referral. This has been a really fun one. Often our clients want to expand their workforce, have a lot of open roles, and some of the best employees do come from referrals. So having a form where an employee can easily submit the name of the referral, their contact information, and what job they would like to submit them for will be a great way to drive some engagement and hopefully make it a little bit easier to hire a couple great new employees. Next up, we see reporting safety violation. So if there's ever something that is not up to standard, an employee can report to the HR team and have it be addressed by them whenever needed. And then requesting a department change. Maybe this employee is looking to switch roles internally within the company or switch locations to a different area. They could submit that on a form and have it reviewed by upper leadership to know what the employee is, where they would like to transfer to, and the reason for that request. Lastly, some general form use cases. One of my favorite that I've seen a lot of clients implement is a suggestion form. This is one that you can have always live where an employee can submit suggestions either about their beekeeper experience or about the company experience as a whole. It is fantastic to have that open feedback where employees feel that they have the ability to share their opinions and have their voices heard whenever is an important issue for them. After that, I always love seeing Employee of the Month nominations. It's fantastic to do an employee shout out. It can be a great way to encourage that team camaraderie and let employees know that they have been appreciated by different coworkers or leaders around them. So you can have it set up where you submit the employee's name and why they deserve to be nominated for recognition. We also see a lot of internal product or swag sales to employees. So if you have, for example, we have a customer in a meat manufacturing company where they often run promotions to their employees that they can buy the meat at a discounted price. So they'll put up a form with the type of meats that are available and employees can submit it saying how many of each different type they would like to purchase. At guest visit registration, we see this sometimes with offices if they are requesting for guests to come visit for the day. Maybe it is a different client or a family member who they want to tour around the office. They can submit that and it will go to the front desk so they know to anticipate that person at that time. Some uniform requests, if an employee's uniform is getting old or they need to change sizes, it's fantastic to have that ability for them to request it at any point. And also a fun thing is a trivia challenge, having it open for employees to submit some answers and be engaged on company trivia. This is a fun way to get employees excited about the platform each day. We'll now go into some use cases again. So first up is one of our customers in the restaurant industry. So this is a large lifestyle entertainment company. They have a variety of bars and restaurants in the Canadian area. And the challenge that they had before Beekeeper was with their shift notes. They originally were having their managers email the shift notes to the corporate team, but it wasn't done on a frequent basis. There was no standardization of how that information came through. So there's a lot of different formats, and it was overall very hard to track and stay on top of. Using Beekeeper Forms, it completely flipped this process on its head. Employees were now able to submit this information on their phone. It began being done in a much more efficient way because they could track easily to see who had done it, who hasn't, and what teams were filling it out most thoroughly. And then this information was shared. They had these submissions sent to a post and a stream, actually 2 different streams. One stream was for that local management. So if one manager submitted for the day and said, oh, we're running low on this inventory, another manager could see that day and submit their request. On the flip side, it also went to a stream with the corporate leadership. So the corporate team can now be informed of what's going on day to day with these employees. So opening up this visibility to both the local team and the corporate team just made it very clear on the priorities and the missions across the company. After that, we have our luxury hotel. So they use a form for a daily COVID health check. Prior to Beekeeper, their employees were spending about 15 minutes in line every day to verify with another team member their current health state and go through how they're feeling, if there's any symptoms recently. They switched this to be a Beekeeper form. And so it saved these employees all the time that they were previously waiting in line every single day. And then other employees who hadn't yet downloaded the app started noticing that some of their coworkers were getting to skip the line. And they're like, I want to skip the line too. So that motivated them to download the app and start engaging as well. So it was fantastic because not only did it save them time, it encouraged higher usage as well. And by getting those employees to work faster, it saved almost $800 per day of wasted staff time. Similarly, another hotel chain also implemented a health check form. So they were having their staff communicate outside of work as well, wait in line, and have a staff member at the door 24 hours to do these health checks. So by putting this form on Beekeeper instead, they were able to save that person at the door, which was $15 an hour, 24 hours a day, ended up being $360 per day in savings, equating to about $130,000 per year for that specific location. Lastly, we're going to wrap up with a few frequently asked questions for this group. So regarding forms, one of the questions we get the most is, what type of questions can you ask on forms? The great news is there is a variety of questions, and I'll go through them now. So you can see this is a full list of all the different type of questions you can ask on forms. You can stick with one type for the whole form. You can do multiple types. It all mix and match however you prefer. So with short text and long text, I put both the examples on this screenshot here. Very similar in concept. It is a text box for both. Essentially, long text just gives you a wider area to type in. So if the employee is expected to write more than a few words, I would recommend going with that long text just because it'll be easier for them to see their full answer as they type it. After that, we have the drop-down menu. So how that works is you would click open the drop-down and it will bring this section at the bottom of your screen where they'll see all the options and be able to slide to the correct one. Similarly, will be the single select and multi-select. So single select, the employee will be able to see a variety of options, but only be able to select one answer, as you can see with the top question. Multi-select lets the employee select multiple answers at once. So in the same example I did, what days of the week do you work? And they can select every single day that they have their normal shifts. The information field is an interesting one. It's basically a piece of text that you can put into the form. So an example is if you have different sections on the form, maybe the first is about personal information, the next is about work-specific information, and the last is something else. You can put an information field in between each section, just explaining what that section is about and if the employee should skip the questions for any reasons, any sort of instructions like that. The field that is always a lot of fun is the drawing field. So we see our clients use this in a variety of different ways. They might be drawing out the map location of where the item needs to go or some information like that. We've also seen a lot of our clients use it as a signature field. So essentially what happens is it will open up this box where you can draw in an answer or sign with your finger, as I've done here. So check with your legal team to see if this is compliant for the form and the information that you need, but a great way to get that signature as well. And after that, we have the image. So this is great if they need to explain what had happened and show visually what was going on. For example, a piece of broken equipment, they can actually add an image to that broken equipment and highlight it there. And it can either be from their photo library if they've taken a picture earlier that day, or they can take a photo on the spot. After that is the date field, and it will pull up a calendar, making it really easy to choose the exact date that you need to attach on that form. And similarly, if you have a time field, very easy to input the exact time for it and make it really clear for the user as well. And once you have your form complete, you hit submit and you're all done. Next question that we often get is, how do I share a form through Beekeeper? And the answer is there's a variety of ways. First, what you'll want to do is get the link to the form. So here's the form I've created. And if I'm ready to share this form, I'll click that share form button at the bottom of the screen, and it will copy the link to this form. So now that I have the link to this form, I can share it however I like. We have 3 commonly used use cases. The first is a navigation extension. So if you want this form to always be available to workers, you can create a section where you add in the form and employees can just open up their More tab or their shortcuts. If it's one of their top 6, they'll be on that home screen. And from there, access that form at any point in time. Next up is a pinned post. This is great because you can add it just as a post to a stream and then pin it to the top. So that way when any employee needs to reference it, they can open that screen and it will be the first thing that they see within that stream. Lastly, you can send this out in a campaign. Just include the URL to that form within your message and send it out to the specific group that you would like it to go to. Then the employees can always reference back to that form within their messages. If they need to submit it that day or in a future date, they can just search for it within their messages and submit it at any time. Lastly, where do the submissions go? So you have created your form, you've sent it out, employees are filling out this information. Where do you find it? First off, you can always access it in your dashboard by going to the toolbox and into forms. Here you'll see all the forms that you've created. And by clicking the gear icon on the right side, you'll see the option to export submissions. This will export all the submissions. You can choose it from the start date or a particular date, and it will send them out into an Excel where you can reference all the fields and information that an employee has submitted. However, there's also other options of what you can do with this information. One of our favorite is using worker bees. So worker bees are a great way to drive engagement, but they can also automate some tasks. And one thing they can automate are these form submissions. So you can create a worker bee that's triggered anytime a form is submitted. And with that information, you can send it to a stream post. So like my example earlier with that restaurant company, they were sending every form submission to a stream post so it'd be instantly visible to those right groups at the right time. You can also send it as a chat message. So maybe it's a more personal content, it's potentially a human resources related form, and you wouldn't want it necessarily shared in a stream post where it'd be visible to a lot of users. You can have a message sent directly to a member of the HR team, including the information and the submission link so that person is informed that there's a form that was just submitted. They can stay on top of it and have that information easily accessible. Lastly, we also see employees send it as an email. So this is done in connection with our third-party company, Zapier. And with Zapier, you can set up a free Zap to connect your Beekeeper account and have these form submissions sent to a specific email address. So again, if it's sensitive information like human resources and you want to make sure it's hitting the right person within the human resources team, you can create a Zap that every time that specific form is created, an email gets sent directly to that person in HR with the form submission. So I know we've covered a whole bunch of information today. I hope this was helpful. If there's any questions you had I did not cover, please email us. The email address is customersuccess.na@beekeeper.io, and a member of our team will follow up. Again, I hope this was helpful, and thank you all for joining. It was wonderful having you here today.